If we don't control that pH and that pH begins to get too low, the first one I would say is, water hammer. If we have a bunch of water in a steam header, we want to get that water out. So that's going to involve having well-designed and well-placed drip legs with working traps that are properly sized on those drip legs. Otherwise, as loads swing and things go, we may pick up a slug of that water and fling it down the pipe and cause something to break. No amount of water hammer is acceptable. So let's make sure we get the header drained as we start it up and get it hot. And then as it's running, then it should not continue to make more condensate than what our drip legs can handle. We don't really need to accept water hammer, and it can be very dangerous and hurt people. So water hammer would be one. A really common one that I see is corrosion. So typically, your kind of traditional water treatment practices are going to involve a chemical called an amine, and that amine is going to control the pH of the condensate that forms in our steam system and of the condensate coming back to in our condensate return system, coming back to the boiler room. If we don't control that pH and that pH begins to get too low, then that condensate will strip iron from our steam pipe and from our condensate system. So it's not uncommon that we have a customer that says, yeah, we're fighting a bunch of condensate leaks. This system is, it's a piece of junk. It's old, blah, 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 blah. And I'll ask them, well, what's your amine dosage practice? Well, we aren't treating amines because, we couldn't find one that was food safe, or couldn't find one that was organic, or, yeah, the tote ran dry. We just don't treat that one anymore. Not treating amines is going to lead to stripping iron in your steam and condensate system. It's going to lead to condensate system leaks in carbon steel condensate systems. And then it's going to lead to that iron being in your condensate, going into your deaerator, going into your boiler, where it cycles up in the boiler, and it could lead to an iron scale in the boiler. So if you think through that process, oftentimes the first sign of steam and condensate system issues is red, brown, or black boiler water samples, because that iron has come back around through the system into the boiler where it gets cycled up. And it's easier to see when it's cycled up 30, 40, 50 times in the boiler water. It's easier to see that red iron is coming back. So certainly corrosion is a big one. So work with a water treatment professional. But yeah, the basics are keep the pH of the condensate in the range that they told you to keep it in by adjusting that amine. And if you need help, call them. Certainly, they're there to help you. Some steam systems could fail from carryover. Carryover is water that leaves the boiler, right? We only want steam leaving a steam boiler, not the boiler water itself, for a couple of reasons. One would be water hammer, we talked about. The other would be that water is kind of full of dissolved solids. So there's a lot of calcium and things dissolved in that boiler water that is cycled up. And when we send that down the steam pipe, sometimes those dissolved solids can cause issues. So it's not uncommon to find that a steam regulator is no longer functioning. And when we pull it out of service and open it up, it's plugged with a white chalky substance and that's calcium and boiler chemicals that came from that boiler water. So that's kind of a telltale sign of boiler carryover, is that we have pressure reducing devices and control valves out in the system that are plugging up with that residue. That's a telltale sign that we have a carryover problem. So we either need to fix the boiler internals or adjust the boiler pressure. It can happen a lot. If somebody takes a boiler that was running at 100 psi and lowers it to 50, you're going to start getting a lot of carryover. Or we can address that by adding an external steam separator. So after the boiler, in that steam pipe, we can put a steam separator in there that's going to take those droplets of water that came from the boiler and get those out of the system. Again, we want good dry steam going through our steam system. Another cause of steam system failure would be poor design for growth. So sometimes we'll come upon a system where that pipe runs 200 feet with no expansion loops and no anchors. Everything's maybe hanging in hangers from the ceiling, or maybe it's just run on pipe shoes, and when you get to the far end of the plant, the shoes are walking off of the beams, right? So just making sure that whoever is installing new steam systems has accounted properly for that thermal growth, because it can be quite a bit of growth when you're talking about large pipe and large steam systems. And so just making sure we're building in the piping flexibility for that, so that we don't end up bending and breaking other things in the system. The last I would say is bad trapping. So what do I mean by bad trapping practices? So it's not uncommon, and I have several customers that we've happened across this in the last year or two, where they'll put a good drip leg in front of a steam regulator to dry out and take any moisture out, and then that steam goes through the regulator and it drops down in pressure, and then there's not a drip leg on the low pressure side of the regulator. That runs then into whatever the process is, whether it's a heat exchanger or whatever. The issue is that when the control valve on the process steam user closes, then now I've got this low pressure steam trapped downstream of the regulator. If it doesn't have its own low pressure steam trap or drip leg and trap, then it will accumulate water there. And when the process turns back on, you're going to have hammer or issues with that water that became trapped in the low pressure side. So in a regulating station, even if we're regulating just for one piece of equipment, we're going to need a trap before the regulator so that the moisture doesn't damage the regulator. And then we're going to need one after the regulator and upstream of that control valve so that when the control valve closes, we don't accumulate a bunch of water. And then the last thing, kind of to go in that same vein of bad trapping practice, the low and high pressure condensate, it doesn't have to be this way, but it generally works much better if they're returned in separate condensate return lines. So if I have 100 psi high pressure steam and it's mixing with 10 psi condensate that's after the regulator, then I may have too much back pressure in the condensate return system from the high pressure traps to ever allow the check valve on the low pressure condensate trap to open. And so oftentimes the complaint is my low pressure traps aren't working. I've replaced this trap 3 and 4 times on this piece of equipment or on this drip leg, and it keeps failing. The fact of the matter is it may not be the trap at all. It could just be because you're mixing high and low pressure condensate. So we see that pretty commonly. It's kind of tends to be one of those things that gets worked out in a new system because on paper it was drawn up in one condensate return system, but then in practice it just doesn't work. And so we end up running a separate low pressure or high pressure condensate return system. We separate those two systems or drop them to a local condensate receiver so that everything is gravity draining to a condensate receiver in its own pipe. Problems go away. So yeah, don't mix high and low pressure condensate and your system will function much better.